So, hello everyone. Welcome to another event of Munich.NET Meetup. This time is kind of strange, to be honest, because I'm using Teams for the first time and I have no feedback how many people actually joined. So at least I don't know yet where to look if some people joined. So maybe I'm speaking to myself right now. I have no idea. Anyway, yeah, let's start. Before we start, just a fair warning. Theoretically, I'm recording this. I think I'm recording this. So if anyone objects, let's see how we will correct that by just dropping me a message and we'll see what we can do. We'll blur you out. I don't think you are visible, but maybe in the comments or in the QA. So yeah, let's see how it goes. And if anything, let me check the QA here. I think it's on, it's live. Okay, if you want anything, just use the QA. It's the question mark icon. I hope it's up right corner to you too. So the way to contact me is this. This is me. I am George. I am a Microsoft MVP, Cloud Solutions Architect, and the .NET Software Engineer. My surname, I heard from many people that my surname is difficult to remember, and finding my Twitter handle or LinkedIn or everything, which is my name and my surname together. So I created this QR code here. You can find a bigger image of that here. Just scan it, you will go to a page which contains links to my social media, and then you can find me. Today we are going to see some new features of C# 10. I called it a speed date because we're not gonna see all features, we're just gonna see some, and the ones that I find more important than the others. And yeah, I just got an okay that at least I'm broadcasting. And yeah, I think we're gonna make it in half an hour, 45 minutes. Unless there are questions, we can pull that to any, we don't have any limit. Let's get started after that Christmasly C# 10. First thing, how we're gonna do things. I thought that I didn't create many PowerPoint slides, just code. I will open Visual Studio 2022, of course, because it's a requirement. And we're gonna see the changes with code. So I also grouped the changes however I thought that they belong to. For example, changes in using, global using, implicit using, and one that doesn't come exactly as it is from Microsoft. I name it CS prod using, probably belongs to the implicit using, but in any case, I think it's more or less of a different category. Now, these are the three new features or improvements we're gonna see of C# 10, and now we're gonna let's use Studio. I think you can see it right now. If the letters are not big enough, then let me know and I will I don't know, change the magnification here. So using, what changed? As the first note was saying, global using, the first bullet point. What's global using? You see that I have a class here, it just does a few things not important, and it has the usings on top, the necessary usings. One thing that I can do, since, for example, in program CS, we also want, and it's missing here, the using of system, right? Now it's working perfectly fine. I can add a global here. I can add a global here, and then I don't need it here anymore. See? One way to do things, although what I do like more, I think it's better if you want to go this approach, is add the global using CS file. Have all the global usings that you think are necessary here, you see that this is grayed out because we also have it in the program CS. Now, if I go to the program CS and delete this one from here, nothing changes. Still builds correctly. And if I go to the usings here and delete everything else, again, we have the same. So it's a way, let's say, to clean our files and keep them smaller, from everything that might be a huge list of namespaces there, and we were worried of removing unnecessary namespaces. Now we don't even have that. So this is one way of doing things, but there is another way. There is the implicit using. What's that? We can come here and add in the CS program. You see, whatever. Implicit, I think it's called implicit usings. Here it is. True or enable, it's the same thing. Enable, and now, oops, yeah, but it needs to actually be enabled. And now, based on the type of the project, based actually on the SDK, this thing, some using are implied and are kind of included in any CS file that you have. So these are not necessary here. We can comment them out. No, we can actually exclude the project, and we can go here, but we don't have any using at all. And all of these three and even more are implied in the from the CS project. Now, the way to find, and I can hide me, to be honest, maybe you need a bigger screen. Let's experiment with Teams now. I want this, and I want to send it to you. You probably will stop seeing me in a few, or even now, I don't know. So where were we? Yeah. There is a way based on the SDK of the project to actually imply some using and not have them anywhere. I'm not a fan of hidden code, but anyway, you might, I don't know, like it. There is another way. I have two global usings here. I don't know what that is, but there is also the CS proj using that I was talking about is a way to actually extend that implicit usings by adding your own usings. So I can do that. I can do now add, for example, update, whatever I want. Let's try just for now the remove, and let's try to remove this one. So there is a way, let's say, to edit, to edit the implicit using. So if I add this thing here, then if I go to our sample here, we'll see that this is not anymore recognized because I've removed the system link queue from the implicit usings. So that was part one. Let me correct that. That was part one and about the using. I don't know if you have any questions, to be honest. If you do have, I think you can use the Q&A. I will see the question, I will pay attention every once in a while, and I will try to answer it. So let's go to the next slide, which is, if I remember correctly, file scope namespace. This is rather easy. We're not going to spend much time here, but up until now, we had that thing here, right? So, I don't even have, I should have example correct. Come on. Let's name that namespace sample. I don't know. And let's include color 5 here. Sorry, I just mistyped here. This is what we have, and this is what you know. We need to have a namespace and include our class inside the namespace. What that change says that is that we can forget that brackets This is the improvement, and actually have our namespace here, just like that, or have everything in the global namespace and not even have that. So this is what you were seeing before. I was exercising on those samples and probably I forgot to revert the namespace thing. But anyway, that's the change. Nothing very serious. You can just have the namespace without brackets. Let's leave it like that for now. I don't think there will be questions for this magnificent change, so let's go quickly to our next one. Lambda expressions. What's that? We have changes for the natural type of lambdas. We have changes for the natural type of method groups. We're going to see one by one. We have changes for the return type of lambdas and improvements change actually the ability to add attributes on lambdas. Let's go back to our code. I need to find out how. And here we are. So first of all, first change. Up until C#9, as I'm writing in this comment here, methods had to be we had to convert lambda expression to a delegate or an expression tree, right? An expression type, which means that we couldn't just use var here. Now, from C#10, we can do that. We can have var here because the compiler knows what the input is, its type of string, and it knows what that method returns an integer. So this, the delegate, that delegate that we had before here is implied. You can see that it shows on its own an attribute, an in of t and out of t result, which t is string and t result is integer. Now this doesn't work always, and of course that makes sense because here this is a valid. This is totally valid, but here we don't specify what type this parameter is. The argument, let's see if we had the method, what type that is. So this thing here, if we try to use var, we'll get a message that, you know, I cannot understand which one you want me to use, since this can be anything. It cannot be a string, so we need to, I had that example here just to understand that we need to actually keep some of our logic as it was before. The natural types, it's somewhat the same, right? This is our delegate. This is our method that we want to have a pointer to, and this is the read. Now, here we know that this is returning an integer and is accepting nothing. So it's easy for the compiler to understand that we need a function of type of returning type integer. But here, the console right now has 16 overloads. That's 17 actually. So it is impossible for the compiler to understand what are you going to use. So that is not, again, as before, is not going to work here. Yeah, same thing. Let's undo that. Come on. Okay. Third one, return types from Lumbabs. Kind of the same. I mean, what are we doing here? This is a lambda expression, right? So what are we doing here? We are, based on this b argument parameter, we are deciding if it will be an integer or a string. This will work like as it is in C#9, but there was no way actually to have var here, right? Because it was impossible to know, is it a string or it is an integer? It will not automatically revert to any object because of course it can too. So this was unusable. But now what we can do is define the return type of our lambda. So since we are defining our return type here, we can very well var here because everything then is known, the input and the output. Yeah. And The last one. The last one, yeah, not very complicated. We are able to have attributes on lambdas, and this is what we had before, what we've seen before. If you have code that it is like that and you don't wish to change it, you can add an attribute there. Or if you're gonna go the new way, you have the return type of your lambda and you can decorate it with one or more attributes here. I think that is it for the lambdas, the improvements that it would be nice to know for lambdas. Let me think, let me check if I have anything else from here. And I think not. So we can go forward. If there are any questions, there will be time at the end. Anyway, but you can also ask them now. So let's go back here. We're done with lambdas. Let's see what improvements are to structs. And here there are a few things we might spend 1 or 2 minutes more. One, parameterless struct constructors and field initializers. Now, yeah, we'll see that later, but we didn't have parameterless struct constructors because there was already one defined during compile time and we couldn't override it. This is not the case anymore. We have record structs, another user data type, have sealed modifier to string in the record classes. Yeah, I don't know, this is not complicated at all and it is exactly what it says it is. So yeah, I don't know how interesting it will be, but it's just that. And with expressions on structs and on types, we know with from records from C#9 last year, but we're gonna see it again. So let's go back to our code here and move the structs. And where are we? Here we can delete that and again, we can do that together. And we also need the bracket here. So this is new, right? And this is new because up until, I don't know, C#9, we couldn't have parameterless constructors. What was happening is that every struct has an implicit constructor that it was public and it was parameterless and we couldn't actually override it. It was used to set all fields to the default value. So this was impossible. Now it is, and we'll check in a minute why it's useful. Another thing that we can see here is the init only property, which is used for immutability. And this is something that we need to maybe stay a few minutes more. So record structs, the second bullet. We know that class is reference type and struct value type. In C#9, another user data type, along with class and struct, was introduced, which was called record. It was a reference type. In C#10 now, we have record struct, but we also rename record to record class. This is for clarity. So right now, what we have is class, struct, record class, and record struct. These 4 types, these 4 user data types, nothing more. And why? Where can we use records now that we have so many types of records? First of all, I think there is a common misunderstanding about immutability. Records are not by default immutable, and they can be, but you can just write them anywhere, any way you want, so they are not immutable. Let's take this, for example, and paste here. Let's say that this is a class. Is this immutable? Of course, that's immutable. But if I change that to set, that's not immutable, even if I change that to a private set, right? Because I could very well have a method here, public, Visual Studio 2022, it says that city was the previous one, so guesses region will be the next property. That's smart. Anyway, do something, I don't know. Oops, why? And here, I could, of course, come and since it's a private set, change city to, I don't know, Munich, and that breaks immutability, isn't it? What's that? I have another address here. Let's name that too. So if I come here to add record, does that make this object immutable? No, it's still not immutable. You can even have remove the set from here, the private from here. It's not immutable. And I think this is a misunderstand. This is a mistake that I don't understand. I couldn't find a reason why that happened from Microsoft, to be honest. Why, since these are built for immutability, why is this allowed? I shouldn't be able to have this anything in here that breaks immutability, but I do. So this is right now immutable. This is immutable, and making it immutable has nothing to do with the record keyword. I could be here, and this is again immutable. You can see the message here. It will be init only property, blah, blah, blah. And if I have a record, I guess it will be the same. So yeah, immutability is not one thing that we want, that we are after automatically with record. Microsoft suggests that if you want immutability, you should use records because they are actually better at something. If I rename that to struct, for example, you remember that struct are value types. The difference between non-record types and record types is the equality. For non-record types, for this thing here, okay, this thing here, what's happening is that on runtime, reflection is used to actually go through all the properties and check the values if they are equal. For records, though, the compiler creates all the necessary methods and operators to compare without reflection, which means faster, being faster, right? Now, if you are ready to sacrifice a few more bytes of adding all the additional equality methods and operators here, then you should use records, but you should use them just for that. DTO objects, for example, it's a very good example, and you can use, probably that's the reason that they are not by default immutable. You can have DTOs objects that they are not immutable and still get advantage of the records ability to create those equality methods and operators and actually use them directly instead of using reflections, thus being faster. Let's don't forget that .NET 6 is the faster .NET framework up until today, and probably this is also plays a great part. What's that? Yeah, because this is immutable now, the property. So the last thing we want to see from records, from structs, was the one that we discussed earlier, the width, right? We already know that we can have what address, and this is a struct, isn't it? Yeah, struct. Address equals new address, and let's not use that. Let's use this city, I don't know. Right? Something that you can definitely do, and from now on, address cannot change because this is immutable. Is it? We can also name record. What would you do to create a new object or change its value? The only way to do that would be to create another. What? Sorry. Would be to create another value and have address, for example, equals address width, and have here the city. I don't know which one to use. Barely. Right? And this is, come on. And this is the way to do stuff with the width. This is to have a common way of doing things, a common API, right? So everything now is kind of clear because we have the class and the struct, have the record class and the record struct. We know the difference, which is the equality. The records hold much more code in order to do that runtime faster. The classes do not hold that code, but they are slower. The non-records are slower on equality. And you can, of course, all these methods that structs have, the records have, you can override them, and you can write your own method for your own operators, your own everything. So yeah, it's maybe a good idea for DTOs and obviously that you're going back and forth to change them to records. So that was one of the biggest complicated things that I couldn't, at the first at least, I couldn't understand because of this, you know, too many record types. Let's go here now and improvements on interpolated strings. What are the improvements here? One is about handlers, string create, new thing, constant interpolated string, even more. I was in a hurry. Let's go back to Studio and let's go to interpolated strings here. So what do we have here? And let me delete that, we can write it together. What do we have here? That's something you know. There is we append a string with a hole here, which we try to cover with the George, the variable name with value George. What was happening up until C# now? This was an implicit call to string format with a hole and the variable, the value actually. So this thing was very slow. It was including a lot of inboxing and boxing and outboxing, sorry. And yeah, since we are talking about the fastest framework, they had to have an improvement here. What is happening now actually is this, which is much clearer and easier, faster for you. So this is not actually a change that you actually write it. You don't write anything, you could continue writing this, but this code from now on, from .NET 6, from C#10 on, will result in this and not this. So it's just a speed improvement and it's nice to know. The string create, supporting the iFormat provider. This was nothing, this is yeah, new. I think it is a change that it just goes with the API. For example, if I get this, you will see that I can use the same API here. And also, this thing here is transformed to this. I think it's format. This one. Now, what that does is it's giving you a way to define the format provider, the iFormat provider for the holes, for the name right now. There was no way to do that, but now you can. The last one is the constant interpolated string, and it's that. You couldn't do that, and it's a nice thing that you have, and I will show you an example why this is nice. So when you were starting an interpolated string, this meant that this thing here is a variable. No matter if the variable is constant and it's not a variable, this was not accepted. Now it is, and you know why this is important? Because of this parameter I had here, and I was planning to write it with you. For example, what we had up today, if we wanted to write an attribute or something that required a constant, we had to write obsolete, I don't know, please use sample. name of some function. I don't even remember what the name of the method, another method right now, but that's not important. We had to do that because there was no way to have a variable here, or there was no way to have actually an interpolated string here. Now we do. We can do that, and we can have here thing name of, I don't know, let's name sample. Do I have something? Samples, and then whatever, this one, other improvements. So it is a nice way to keep our documentation correct, and by renaming the other improvements method, we also have a rename here. This is yeah, something that just, I think it just will help you if you keep your documentation up to date, which you should. It will help you out from now on to do exactly that. Keep it up to date without a lot of effort. And at the end, how much time? That I promised? Almost half an hour. Even more improvements. Yeah, it's a couple more improvements that I find that it's probably useful. There are more than that, but yeah, in order to have a speed date, I thought that I could limit it. Mixed declaration and variables in deconstruction and extend property patterns. Let's see what that is. Especially the last one is very helpful if you use pattern matching. Let's go, where are we? Here. So up until C#9, we had that, right? We could deconstruct this either to some known variables, declared variables, or declare them here. We couldn't do that. Now we can. It's useful, and it keeps our code cleaner. We can even discard that, right? And the second one, extended parameters. Let's see, extended property patterns. So let's have an object here of type person, which has another in it, another complex object. What we had to do up until C#9 was that if we want to check if this object is person, and even more, if the city of that person is Munich, we had to write that like that with curly brackets, and you can imagine if you had even more complex object, it would be pretty unreadable. Now you can just do that. Much clearer and actually much friendly, much inviting to use. I know that there were many times I was not using that because of all the curly brackets. It's difficult to read, and it's maybe even bug friendly. I don't know, but this one, it's much easier. So do I have anything else to say? Let me check here my notes. I think, yep, I think we are done, unless there are some questions. As I promised, a speed date. Let me go back to Teams and move to the next slides, which I think is this one. Come on, move. Yep, this one. And as you understand, that is it. That was the fast event for today, just to get to know of the new C#10 features. I have no idea how to interact with you now because I'm not very familiar with Teams. As I told you about, this is the first event that I'm doing. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you didn't have a lot of questions that you just couldn't answer. If you do have questions and this team thing didn't work as expected, then try to reach out and I will answer all questions to you. There is a question. So that's good. There are people watching. I'm not alone. Do you know if we already have ReSharper supporting these features as part of refactoring or so? ReSharper. I'm not using ReSharper. I know that it's a great tool, but I'm not using it because it's making my studio a bit heavier. And honestly, I have no idea. I can take a look and let you know, but I don't know right now if ReSharper supports this. I know though that if we go back to Studio, there are these profiles. Where are the profiles here? And configure code cleanup. You can open up and you can define here anything you want to automatically be done, even available filters that I don't have here. And then if you open up a code, I don't know if it's apply me sort. I think it's the same as the old ones. Most probably though, no, Studio doesn't have them. So of course you should yeah, end up with Resharper. Yeah, I don't know. You have to ask Resharper for that. Sorry. Anything else besides that nice surprise that I understand people is watching? And I should publish the question also. I have to do that. Sorry, I didn't even know that. I should wait just a few minutes more. And then, to be honest, if you have any other questions besides this nice romantic old photo here, I could go back and there is a new one. I think there was an update on Resharper, which is first version which supports versus 2022. An attendee here, which is anonymous, just said that I don't know if it's useful for you, but yeah, I think Resharper has the inside tips, since it's a very big and respectful company, has the inside tips to know what the new things on Visual Studio will be, and even if doesn't, you can have the previews, right? So I think they should be ready by now. You can check it. I think it will be fairly easy to check that. Let's go back one more minute and we have a few more questions. So just to go to this slide, it might be useful if you have questions after it, and I don't know how to go now. Anyway, so what's the question, the new question here? Hello, could you tell us about records? I think it was introduced in C#9 first. Yeah, you're right. They were introduced in C#9 first. Let me go back to records. Where is that? Structs, yeah, here. So I was saying here that the record was introduced in C#9, but it was introduced as is, as a record. So in C#9, we had class, struct, and record. We had those three user types. I hope you're seeing my screen. Let me check. Yeah, okay. We had those three user types. From C#10, the record that we had in C#9 was renamed to record class. You can still use that, but this is for clarity. And another one was added, record struct. So for C#10, we have class, struct, record class, record struct. We have two types of records and two types of non-records. I don't know if this is what you're asking. You are right that it was introduced in C#9, but in C#10 we have this. Yeah. So no questions, just saying thank you. Even watching from New Zealand. If someone is watching from New Zealand, then I'm sure, then definitely not alone. I'm curious what time is in New Zealand, but I will check that later. Thank you for watching from New Zealand. Any other questions, anyone? Let's go back here so you can ask the questions even later. I think you see that. I think you see that. Yes, here. So another one. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sophronis, and let's talk later if you have any more questions. I don't know if you have anything, any other question. I think not. I'm just delaying as much as I can in case someone is typing, because I guess you can just open your 7 in the morning. Then thank you very much, Rudy, for doing this 7 in the morning and watching C#10. Yeah, that's commitment. Wow. Yeah, that's cool. You know what I liked before in Zoom? That there was a way you can just click on the microphone option there. You can just start speaking, and then you didn't have to write all that thing. You could have a discussion. Now with that, I haven't found a way yet, but this is the first. I will experiment. There was I think 2 types, webinar type and live event or something in Studio sorry, Microsoft Teams. This is the live streaming or something. I will try next time with the webinar and see if it will work better. In any case, yeah. So I think no more questions. We can go back to our Christmas photo here, and I was thinking, well done. I was thinking to have some sort of right up there, you know, Merry Christmas, Frohe Weihnachten or something, but I couldn't find a nice way to write it, and I think it's a nice photo like that. So have a very Merry Christmas, and I hope a healthier New Year, where if I doubt, but maybe we'll get over this pandemic and we'll be able to have real life events. So thank you very much. The question now for me is if I indeed recording this and I will be able to get it and upload it to YouTube. If I can, then you will be able to also watch it from there. Ciao, bye. Now, here and